Welcome to another episode of UCRD Reviews. So today I have a pretty exciting release, and it's a regular release as well. This one's the MS-07B3 GUF Custom version anime. This mobile suit was piloted by Norris Packard, who managed to take on the entirety of the 8th team and 3 gun tanks, and beat them, finish his mission, all before dying in battle. The GUF Custom was a significant upgrade to the GUF from Mobile Suit Gundam, and it got rid of the fixed armament in its left hand for a 3-barrel 35mm machine gun, and has a massive fixed Gatling gun on its shield, as well as upgrades to the sword and the heat rod, which is now a heat wire. It was made primarily for ace pilots, and was also featured in MS Igloo 2. We've had a few figures of this before. We had an MSIA a long time ago that was released both in North America and Asia, and came with the Dode 2, which is pretty cool. And we had a Robot Spirits release of this one that was not all that impressive. It was when they were really pushing the effectiveness of hardpoints, so it had hardpoints all over the place where it really didn't need any. So it was an overly complicated figure. And now we have this one in the version anime line, which I'm really excited about. This was a really highly anticipated release for me. I'm hoping this means the flight type will show up one day, but for now we have the legendary GUF Custom. So I'm really excited to see what this one's like. There were some issues I had with the promotional pictures, so we'll get into that. That's mostly accessories, so there may be a little bit of ranting in this video. This may run a little longer than normal, but it's all good stuff, I promise. I might have a controversial opinion or two, but we'll see. So let's go ahead and take a look at the figure then. So the GUF Custom has a much more slim design this time around than the bulkier previous Robot Spirits release. I like the look of this one quite a bit. They got the colors just right. So you have the 2 different shades of blue with the black accents. So everything looks good there. The head articulation, he can look down about that far, and he can look up about that far with a full 360. You do want to be careful of the antenna, of course, and the top of the head is removable so that you can move the mono eye. It'll move about that far on both sides. So good articulation there. The head looks a lot better. You have that little point where the eye is. I don't have the eye perfectly centered, but you see what I'm talking about there. So everything looks really good there. You do have some chest flex, just a little bit of it. You can lean downward about that far. You can actually lean up quite a bit, which is pretty impressive. You can actually see the internal workings there. And not much side to side. They do have the cables. There's not much side to side movement in the middle of the chest either, but that's okay, because we knew, it would be a little bit limited with the cables there. You do have 2 ball jointed effect part compatible thrusters. You have panels. Let's see if I can knock one of these off of here. You actually have panels here for storage on either side, which is cool, so you can store like a Zaku bazooka or something. You also have storage here, so that'll lift up and you can store stuff in there, or store weaponry rather. In the arms, they'll come up, looks like about that far before they're acting like they want to fall off. Shoulder armor is just ball jointed on there. It looks good, not as much detail as I'd like on the shoulder armor. Arms can rotate up underneath the shoulder armor, full 360. And then you have decent elbow articulation, nothing crazy. And you have ball jointed hands with a hinge joint as well for added articulation. Now, my first complaint here is this. I don't know why they put a big ugly gray peg on the GUF Custom's arm. I think it looks pretty unsightly. Every other figure did it way better, so I don't know why they took a step backwards and put this on there. You're going to hear that term step backwards quite a bit in this review, unfortunately. You do have the heat wire right here in its retracted state. Excuse me. And everything else looks good on the arms. Then you have the skirt armor, which is going to be kind of ineffective just because of the cables, but it'll allow the legs to go out about that far, and you have that weird version anime hip joint thing. And let's see if we get the legs not up too far. Good knee articulation though. Everything looks good there. And then we'll bring the legs back in. The feet has kind of a downward toe articulation and doesn't really, it comes up a decent bit. You have effect part compatibility on the bottom of the foot, and it'll move side to side a decent amount too. Interesting that it has a downward toe instead of an upward toe, but we'll see how that works in the long run. It looks good though. I mean, you know, again, everything looks nice. You have a little bit of detail. You know, these regular releases, or really version anime in general, are not super well known for their attention to paint detail unless you get like a real marking version. But this one looks good. You know, the colors, everything worked pretty well aside from this. So let's go ahead and check out the accessories real quick. So the GUF Custom has the standard set of hands. You have the hand rack, two different sets of posing hands. You have gun hands and heat sword hands, which is pretty nice. You have a replacement antenna up here, and we'll move into problem number 1. We have the heat wire, which is an upgrade to the GUF's heat rod. So instead of being a superheated slicing weapon, they chose a magnetic electrical shock weapon, which is something that the original GUF's heat rod could do as well. But this one also allows the mobile suit to grapple, and this is actually in its grappling hook form. You can see the hooks are deployed. My problem with this is we don't get the regular form of it. The MSIA came with both forms, and I believe the Robot Spirits release came with both forms, but we don't get it here, which is really unusual. The method in terms of attaching it is actually, well, you gotta pop this little pig out of the arm. Let me see if I can do it off camera. Okay, so I did that off camera. Before I continue, there are 2 points of articulation I wanted to show that I forgot. First is the arms can actually swivel back and forth on a little joint here. And the second one is pretty cool. You can push down on the backpack and allow the GUF Custom to lean forward a little more, which has a more menacing pose to it. Now I will get to the bad stuff. I tried to pull the little heat rod piece out, which I did successfully. Just kidding. It actually broke in there. So unfortunately I can't show you how to attach this. It's supposed to just attach in there, but the piece that's here took all of my nail strength to try and get out, and when I finally did, it just broke the head off it. So I'm just going to glue it back in there and be disappointed. So this was actually more disappointing than I thought it would be. And not only do we not get the magnetic end for it, but I can't even use it because of the way they've designed the figure. So let's go ahead and move on to the other accessories. So next up here we have the heat sword, which is an improvement over the GUF's heat sword. This one is just a solid cold blade that can heat up. The original GUFs had this like memory shrinking polymer material, so when it was stored it was really short, and as it heated up it would grow to its normal size and be usable, but it wasn't very effective long-term in battle, so they developed the Dom's Heat Saber to be more durable, and then this kind of came from that development. So within the scope of the figure here, it looks great, works fine. It stores in the Gatling shield, which we'll show in a little bit. My problem with this accessory, we didn't get an orange one. The original Robot Spirits GUF custom had an orange blade, because even though it wasn't seen in the anime, it does heat up. By the way, we don't know why neither the GUF nor the GUF flight type see or use the heat sword in its intended way, but I think it's just for added dramatic effect. But we don't get an orange one, which is a disappointment. We have the 3-barrel 35mm machine gun. This attaches to the arm of the GUF Custom. This is what replaced the 5-barrel Vulcan gun on the original GUF. So this allows use of the GUF Custom's hand. So this little piece swivels down and kind of locks up against the wrist. You have the camera that can move around. It is effect part compatible, although the effect part will not be released until the 3rd option set. And then you have the magazine back here, which is not removable, which is my first complaint about this accessory. It should have had a removable magazine, not only because that would have been cool, but because it was actually shown in the anime to have a removable magazine. So I don't know, it's a little bit disappointing there. And then this is kind of weird. It has this multi-pointed unnecessary articulation, which makes no sense. If you disconnect the magazine from the gun no longer works, so I don't know why this is a feature. They claim it's to allow the shield, which hooks into here, allows it more movement, but totally unnecessary. Could have easily made a magazine storable back here, so another disappointing accessory. And then we have the Gatling shield, which is the GUF Customs super cool accessory. We have the storage for the heat saber, so it'll go right in there like that, which is pretty nice. It slides right in. This is the peg that hooks into the machine gun, which is a little bit small, but it has a solid lockup, so there is that at least. We're going to go ahead and remove it again real quick. We have a swiveling handle here, so you can kind of swivel it out of the way and then put it in the GUF Customs hand once you get the gun settled. The rest of it's pretty solid. It's not like the original Robot Spirits where it's just, you know, a multi-piece mess. Everything's locked in there pretty well. It is effect part compatible, which we'll show off in a little bit. And then, just like in the show, it's removable, which is really neat. So, and that brings me to the shield. So this is the shield in its normal configuration. This is removable. So this is how the GUF Custom dropped all the Gatling equipment in the show, and then he had the shield on here. The problem is there's no way to hook it up, unfortunately, because the top bracket, which is right here, is the method to hook the shield onto the machine gun, which is incorrect. In the anime, this bracket wasn't there after he had dropped off the Gatling gun. So this is not anime accurate. The original MSIA did something really weird where the shield could attach to the arm but not to the machine gun. And then the previous Robot Spirits actually got it right. So we took a step backward yet again and made it like this. So, I mean, I guess the cool thing is the sword is still storable, if I can get it in there right. So you can still store the sword in there, but, you know, I think it looks kind of goofy with it sticking out at the front. You know, if it's not in the Gatling shield, I don't think it looks right. So, I mean, it works. You know, the whole component works. It looks good. It's not heavily weighted, which is nice. You know, he can hold the Gatling shield up, which is cool. And it looks nice. You know, the colors are kind of dull. You know, they have this kind of like gunmetal gray, then this bluish gray. But, you know, it fits kind of in line with version anime. They're not known for their exquisite paint detail. So, you know, great accessory here for the Gatling shield, but the shield itself is a bit disappointing. So let's move on to the effect parts. So we get two pretty basic thruster effects. These are the ball jointed variety that we've seen before. And we get a new effect for the Gatling shield. So it's a two-parter. And it goes together like that. And we'll plug directly in the middle of the barrel. And it looks quite nice. I like the look of this one. It works well. It does put a bit of weight to the front, of course, but if you have the Guf Custom holding the handle, mine's not currently, it can do a bit more in with the weight of it. But it looks really good. He can still hold it up, even though it's weighted, which is nice. So looks really good. So I do like this effect part. I wish the machine gun in here would have had it, but we're getting it in the option set, so I'm content with that. I guess I'm just really forgetful today. Before we move on, I wanted to add that this thing actually has thigh swivel, which is really nice. Some Robot Spirits figures have it, some don't, so this one absolutely does, which is cool. So now we can move on to the comparison. So I decided to do a comparison here with the only other Guf looking mobile suit I own, which is the Guf Flight Test Type, which I'm hoping we get a H8 version of this from 8th MS Team, which would be really cool. But this is it against the Guf Custom. You can see obviously the style seems quite a bit different. The Guf Custom's much more menacing looking, but they kind of share the same basic features, aside from the flight system, of course. Now on the Guf Custom, you'll see that I have the JC Zaku's machine gun here, and the regular Zaku bazooka mounted to the back. Unfortunately, the JC Zaku bazooka is not able to mount on the back due to the peg being much larger. I don't know why they didn't make these pegs to accommodate for that style of bazooka instead of this one, since this is an 8th MS Team figure, but you know, just another ridiculous design choice for this figure that is unfortunate. But these are two really cool Guf figures. This one's getting harder and harder to find. Luckily this one's a regular release, so hopefully it won't get that crazy on the secondary market. So the Guf Custom ended up costing me about $68 and change. And the figure is amazing. It's a great representation of the mobile suit from 8th MS Team. The colors look nice, the articulation's great, the features are nice too, although the weapon storage was a little iffy to me, because I don't know why they made it where it was storable with the regular Zaku weaponry and not the Zaku 2 JC type, since this is an 8th MS Team figure after all. But everything worked good on it. The sculpt was great, aside from the giant peg sticking out of the left forearm. So the figure was good. The accessories were where I had a bit more of a problem. Obviously I had a lot of issues with the heat wire. I think that could have been solved by having this whole piece be removable, like the older Robot Spirits Guf Custom. That would have been a real easy thing to improve on, instead of making this method that's really difficult. The orange heat sword blade, the unnecessary articulation on the machine gun, the shield bracket being not removable unless you want the shield to be useless. Those are all minor complaints, but those are all steps back from where we got it right in previous figures, and that was kind of disappointing to see such a nice version anime line take a step back like that. They could have taken what the old figure could do and improved on it, and instead they tried to do their own thing here and ended up making some aspects of it worse than it was before. And that's something, that's not very innovative of them, especially for such a mobile suit that everybody loves from 8th MS Team. So that was a bit disappointing. My experience with this one wasn't the greatest, so I wouldn't recommend it to absolutely everybody. If you do buy it, keep all those things in mind. With that said, let me know if my complaints were valid. Let me know what you thought about the Gouf Custom if you ended up buying it, and keep an eye out on the channel. We have a Metal Robot Spirits release that I'll be reviewing shortly here. And thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for supporting it, and I'll see you next time.